larger the company, the more attack vectors there are.
Oh yeah.
Within all of this AI, as good as everybody thinks it is, and removing the need for people who don't have common sense.
I see. And in those days, I mean, talking about cybersecurity, nobody ever wrote viruses for Lotus Notes because it was me.
Is automation going to replace people?
No.
No.
So guys, welcome back to the InfoMatters podcast. I think this is episode 2.
It's episode 2.
Something like that. And what we thought for this episode, we'd look at something, what can the bigger companies do to protect themselves. And one could argue that with bigger companies comes bigger things to protect. We call them attack vectors in cybersec. And it's really the things that hackers might want to go after to compromise. And with that in mind, with big companies, what do big companies do now?
What they do, they employ big people.
They do. And so this week we have Joel Fraboni. Danny?
And first of all, thanks, Joel, for coming to InfoMatters.
Thank you, Danny.
2. As we mentioned last week, we had another honoured guest, Dave Stennett. Joel also, we worked together in a large IT logistics company.
Yeah.
You've heard the story. We migrated the world. Joel has moved on to pastures new. As Kenny mentioned, into a very large pharma organisation, managing up everything beautiful in cybersecurity. And we'll be moving on to Joel very shortly. So, Kenny, if you'd like to kick it off.
Yeah, so now Danny and Joel, as Joel will tell us, these big threats are managed in something called SOCs. Joel, what is a SOC?
SOC is just a security operations center.
Right.
So it's
all the things we wear on our...
All the things we wear on... Yeah,
or the things that keep our toys warm.
SOC, not SOCK. But yes, Joel, sorry.
No, so SOC, the SOC, it's security operations center, much like a NOC, which is typically your network operations center. The SOC focuses on, as you said, threats, and like you said, the larger the company, the more attack vectors there are, and attack vectors simply the more places to attack. Yep. So the broader your surface, the more opportunity you have to get penetrated.
I suppose that would lead us on to. I mean, we had a discussion. I have the honour to work with Joel again in another pharmaceutical company. And at the moment, my responsibility is product onboarding. Yeah. Now, a question would be, how do you decide on the correct security measures and products to bring into such a large company to protect it?
It's actually a really good question. And I don't think there's any science to it. I think it's more a matter of, your organizational... I mean, it comes brass tacks. It comes down to your budgets.
You said right.
So, of course. When you're talking about when you're looking at your security landscape, I mean, at the end of the day, there's really a simple formula you got to follow.
Okay.
You've got your budget, which is your pot of money that you can spend, and then you've got basically the 7 layers of security that you need to apply.
Right.
Okay. And
sounds interesting. Go for it. Okay.
How much money you have, if I've worked in a pharmaceutical, one of the beautiful things is we have unlimited budgets, right? Because making money hand over fist. So
are they really unlimited?
Right. Post-production, we're going to talk about salary.
Absolutely.
Cut that out.
Absolutely.
Cut that in. Yeah.
Absolutely. We have unlimited budget. Just have to justify it, right? And again, being a larger organization with a larger attack surface, you have more opportunities to validate why you need certain things, right? So,
and that's based on risk, or dare we say compromise, or
I would say it's risk. Right. It comes down to risk. I mean, and again, you got your 7 layers of security that you need to put in, right? Your boundaries, your networks, your your directories, all of that together, and so I've gone from, and funny enough, just recently, I've gone from the unlimited budgets of the world to a spin-off which has very tight budgets.
Got it. So it's not limited in their case, but the risk is, I imagine,
the risk stays the same.
The risk stays the same, though, doesn't it?
Well, and the risk changes. We have we're a spin-off, so we have a smaller attack vector, right? A smaller surface to come after.
But your layers still remain the same.
But we still need to cover those 7 layers, and we just have a smaller budget to do it. So, and one of the examples would be, I may look at having a endpoint protection platform or tool, a single one, and that just covers everything. Mm-hmm. But with any of those tools, they're not going to cover certain old versions of Linux. They're not going to cover, right? So you've got technical debt
a lot of sunk cost and legacy product.
So if you go too new, too cutting edge,
Yeah.
then you don't have the retrospective coverage.
Got it.
If you go too old school, like the McAfees and the Nortons, right?
Yeah.
Then you're dealing with a tool that doesn't, it's catching maybe half of what you need it
I
to.
see.
Right? So but here comes the magic. That you take your budget. What do I have? Here are my 7 layers. The 7 layers don't change, right? You've got to cover them.
And we should say the 7 layers. Now, I don't know this verbatim, but this is your network layer, your app layer, your security layer. I should know this, but I forget what the model is. But we'll find the appropriate diagram. But
it also, you're talking about your proxies, your boundaries, your directories.
Okay.
So this is basically all of your security fencing.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you go to any, you go to Area 51, there's not just one fence sitting there. There's about 6 of them, and there's guys on the hill with machine guns. Right? So
When do cybersecurity be fun with machine guns?
I mean, to be fair, it kind of is. I mean, that's what your red team should be doing.
We don't arm them. Well,
Yeah,
that might come.
Excuse me?
Well, we do arm them, just
Excuse
not with
me?
guns.
Oh, no, I disagree fully. Capabilities within a SOC. You need threat hunting, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you're looking at
Good and bad, you're
looking at internally at in the past to see who might have already gotten you, and then try to find them out. But then you've also got a team, that does pen testing most of the time. But trust me, when you get hacked, they're reverse hacking the hackers, and I can tell you that the counter
measures, if you like,
countermeasures and what they do and what you're paying them to do
isn't bloodless.
I mean, look, the outcome you want to get to is how do we pay them the least
to get them
to get that to either get our data back or to get them shut down.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And in most cases, you want to avoid having to pay them money.
Yeah.
Right.
Ransom, that sort of stuff, right?
So you're basically reverse hacking them to try to whittle that price down.
Yeah, of course.
Right. And it becomes a game. I mean, at the end of the day, everything that we're talking about is just about money.
Yeah, of course.
And
does that limit your solutions? So let's say company A, budget this size, you can go for the big players, have your Cisco's, have your
more than that though. More than that, right? Because when you're company A and you got the big stuff, you've got your Cisco's, you've got your big players.
Yeah, big brands.
But then you're spending money like what was great about when I worked at the big pharma with the unlimited budgets. We were going to Israel every couple of years. And meeting with and Israel's great because you have the way their military is structured, right? They have military units, the 8900, the 8200. These are your attackers and your protectors, right? I mean, cybersecurity. It's
and Israel. I mean, conscious of world affairs. All world affairs aside for now, they have some of the best threat hunters and cyber.
If you call
cyber
it you're getting hacked. I know a couple of you.
I'm not gonna agree with that actually.
Okay. They have been regarded as such.
There's a little bit of Homer in me, right? I'm from North America, so I'm gonna claim North America just to leave it at that.
Sure, someone else did that, but we'll let you have it.
Talking of history.
Fuck Columbus.
That was the guy. Hey, and there we get the first people. We don't have to edit that out. We did not promise.
Ring the bell.
I don't need to talk about Spanish spies at the moment. Okay. Speaking of cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, again, I think America's actually. I think it would surprise most people. America's got some of the top hacking talent in the world.
No, and when I say Israel, I wasn't dismissing.
But Israel has a really good program because it's a small country. Everybody has to do a military service, and if you have any aptitude in IT, you're not sitting there with a gun marching, every day and
exploiting
going to the front line.
If you pardon the pun, exploiting those skills, huh?
They're leveraging those skills, and it goes from. I sat on an airplane from Israel one time with a woman and her mom, and the girl she was going on vacation to Europe. Her parents were taking her. Her job was to sit in the West Bank and do IT support for all the different, front offices and bases up there.
Yeah.
And, she's talking about, how she was having to, guys, typical story, guy's computer didn't work, so she had to go turn it on and turn it off. Missiles are going off, over her head and blowing up behind her. So, I mean, it's a different world over there. And again, they're I think their mindset is more combat ready.
Right,
but when it comes to IT and IT security and I mean, combat has spilled over so much into the cyberspace that they've invested heavily into it.
We've seen in the past, or indeed it's been pointed out to me in the past in previous jobs where the weaponizing of cybersecurity, it's never that far away, right? So we know.
What do you mean never far away?
Well, it's here. Well,
It's
here. No, I know. Yeah.
So how do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you keep the organizational?
Well, so getting back to my point, right? We're going to Israel and we're meeting with these guys that have come out of these organizations, and now they've worked there. Then they maybe went in and we had an architect for a while that basically went from the 8200 and he went straight into working for the Israeli telecoms, climbed the ranks. I mean, a really smart guy, really smart guy, and he ended up heading up one of our big security units. So. Because of him and his connections, we met with a lot of, let's say, startups that were bringing really cool, AI, right, machine learning mixed with some automation, and a lot of it really being how to take, and a lot of their focus, and rightfully so, an area that was weak for a long time, is how do you take all these security incidents and these various little security blips, right?
Yeah.
You got a big radar and you got little blips everywhere, and how do you pull it together to make sense of it?
So you're I'm constantly risk assessing. You got I imagine.
So when you have money, right?
Yep.
To your point.
Yep.
Constantly risk assessing. When I have money, I'm gonna go buy a few crazy toys because I can afford them, and one of them might work, right? And if it works, well, then it was a great investment.
Right.
Splunk.
It's not.
No, but
I'd hate to say Splunk's not. That's a different.
No, in terms of your data management, incident management. I remember when we launched that because we worked together a couple of years back for a big pharma. Introducing in Splunk and ASEAM and incident management and control and what have you.
Yeah.
And
cybersecurity loves
if you've got the money, and there was a lot of with the pen testing teams in Israel working with.
Well, you know what splunking is, right?
I'm scared to ask.
Me too. By the way, it might involve
This is a family show.
Are you kidding me? You guys don't know what splunking is?
I'm sure you're going to tell.
So I think you'd understand why they got their name. Splunking is cave diving. People who go into caves and explore caves.
I see. Okay.
Splunkers are people who, and the whole reason they named their company that was because, look, we've got this dark space full of data that nobody knows about because we've been collecting all this shit about people that or things or whatever that nobody knows about. And it's just all this unstructured data just sitting there waiting for somebody to explore it.
Right.
So that's kind of where they came up with their name Splunk. I mean, it's just fun to say anyway.
No,
it's just a fun word to say
I've asked the
anyways.
question tons of times when I got the first sticker, put it on my laptop, removed the letter. You'll get it if you do it.
Exactly.
We've all had fun.
And you do wonder. I mean, in the world.
Actually, it's not. No, it's not on the back of that one. No product placement. Take the L out.
In the world of startups, be them cybersecurity, of course.
But they weren't a startup. They were.
Really,
they were big.
But there are a lot of names. You do wonder where they get it from. That was interesting.
Well, you know what they did?
Googled it,
But you know what they did, which was interesting, right? You're talking about security now, and Splunk has a enterprise security platform, which you guys know about because obviously we ran it where we were at. But Splunk itself, so it's a data lake. Data lakes are data lakes, and now with the
data lake being where you put your stuff in for the purposes of analysis. And
think of it this way: a database is a bunch of data that's been structured into very specific ways, right? So for example, the for anybody who remembers the yellow pages, right? The old phone books.
Cool.
Yeah, cool.
That's nothing. But a paper database, right?
Yeah, of course.
Now, if you imagine a book filled with words. Oh wait. Matter of fact, I think we know one, right? Wasn't there a book written in the 15th century filled with words that nobody can figure out today?
I got a funny feeling you're going to get...
Right? So that would be a database, right? It's just data that's unstructured, and it's up to people to decide how they want to structure it and then use that data.
Yeah, good point.
Right? So I, if I want to structure it to show you... Funny enough, I almost worked for this really big sports organization.
Uh-huh.
And I still have contact with them, actually. I was talking to them a few days ago. And the sports organization, financially, they're probably the second largest sports organization in the world, second to the Premiership.
Right.
Joel, by the way, is an ex-professional ice hockey player.
Yeah, but this isn't ice hockey. This is a different sport. It's a North American sport that's only played in North America.
Reindeer shooting.
Right.
I'm trying to
Chopping down trees.
NFL.
Pickleball is like tennis with a hop.
Pickleball's like tennis for fat old people.
It's huge now.
Yeah, because it's for fat old people like us.
Oh, is that why you're interested?
Yeah. But if you take the Voynich manuscript, right? You look at it, it's just unstructured data.
Right.
We don't understand it today. I mean, we're fucking
You might have
idiots.
to help me with the connection between that and pickleball.
Well, so
Is that because you're unstructured and run?
Splunk
No,
without the
we're talking about-
yellow pages and a pickleball. We're getting somewhere.
well, what we're talking about is we're
For
talking.
those that are confused.
Yeah. So we're talking about data, right?
Yeah.
And data lakes. And what I was trying to, using allegories and examples, what I was trying to say is, a data lake is nothing more than just a shitload of data that's unstructured, that's not formatted in any way, just collected and stored.
Yep.
And then it's up to the person who wants to manipulate that data and extrapolate out whatever the hell they want.
So they can pull the data out and structure it into something meaningful. Huh?
Right. So the company.
So that's when data goes to information. I think that's what
So
they
a
say,
company I do some side work for.
Yeah.
Right. Based out of North America, a professional sports league. They have sensors in the turf.
Right.
Where they collect every step of every player. Right?
Yeah.
They have chips in the ball. They have chips in the
how many
equipment.
steps they've run.
They have
so like
they have
Intel
chips.
and
We're not going to name anybody, but they have chips everywhere. And all of those are sending data into Splunk. And Splunk, they've got a massive Splunk implementation. Obviously, AWS.
I never saw a sports team needing... No, maybe that's my thinking. But
Oh, no.
Oh, they do?
Oh, no.
No, I realize.
The analytics they're using for this. So they're using this to reduce the like big push internally. And this is a little project that they've had me working on. They understand that expanding the game outside of America is difficult because the rule book's just really difficult. I mean, unless you're born and raised with the sport and you follow it year after year,
It's bananas.
Even if you leave the sport for 5 years and you try to come back, you're going to be like, hey, wait, what's going on?
So it's an ever-evolving rule book, yeah.
It's an ever-evolving rule book, and obviously the game changes, the rules have to change. But like anything, rules tend to kind of get forgotten, and you get these archaic rules that pop up every now and then at the wrong time and create, and when you got billion-dollar organizations, playing for $1 trillion awards, these people don't like you messing with their money.
So the rules change, but the data doesn't. So having the data allows them to
they want that cleaned up. So all that data, we have to figure out how to structure. Okay, this rule is caused by these actions, and then you pull all the data that might create that action.
Yeah.
And structure it in a way that then you can work with it, right? That's a data lake.
Yeah.
And that's essentially a database, right? If I have a database, it's a phone book. I can...
It's like a pool of letters, isn't it?
I know if I look for this and this on this path and this path, on x-axis and y-axis, I'm going to get...
Yeah, so if you look at it alphabetically...
Can you do a dump of the data?
That's the whole point of a data lake, is you want to dump out the right data.
Wait, so if you haven't got the dump reference, look at episode 1. All will become clear.
Make sure you dump a good log every day.
Giving a clean family show.
And subscribe, ring the bell.
Cybersecurity is all about good log dumps.
It's all about data. Now, given it the age and stage of where we're at, that sounds like a lot of effort. Right, so
again...
One of the things we were just going to mention was...
Now it's more like the benefits of it in doing so.
Yeah. Can you use AI to do something for you in a meaningful way, whether it's doing you out a job or all that kind of stuff? Is there automation or AI or one of the two?
And this is where, getting back to our original question, like trying to full circle this, but make this a beautiful segue for you. Yes, and that's the big thing right now. But the companies that have integrated AI, the companies that are on the forefront of it, obviously are not your big players. They are starting to incorporate it.
These are the startups, right?
But you got to remember, you're a big organization. You're an enterprise. You're not going to, when you go to Cisco and you're buying their product. Yeah. And actually, I'll use Palo Alto. You go to Palo Alto. Palo Alto's come up. They've really come on strong lately.
With AI, or
both.
Automation.
So they've integrated AI into their tool sets, and they've rebuilt. They basically, about 3 years ago, from scratch just started building tool sets. So they've got a endpoint, proper EDI type product that's feeding back in and helping to do. It's helping multiple levels, right? So you got your security incidents, your threat hunting, and it's all correlating everything.
So you got
your
prevention and you got your containment.
You got user behavior.
But you got to remember, like a Palo Alto's, they're on the front of the curve because before that they weren't really a player. They didn't have a name. So they had to come in and win you over They'd win you over by getting you hooked on their networking equipment and then try to push their
so
security
Palo
stuff.
Alto, famous for firewalling.
Yeah.
So they've had to kind of re-engineer to some degree.
They had
if not entirely.
They have to get their foot in the door with their bread and butter product.
Yeah.
To then get the opportunity to talk to you about their next stuff. We were going to Israel and saying, all right, what's the cutting edge? Like, what's the latest, greatest? And these guys are coming out with, all right, so we're using machine learning that's going to go through and it's going to look at all your security incidents.
Yeah.
And so for your threat hunting, instead of having 4 people, you're going to only need 2 because the AI is going to actually do the work of 2 of them. And it's going to reduce the workload so those 2 people can really just stay focused on those stuff that AI is kicking out saying, hey, look at this.
So so when you have that capability, does that reduce your headcount? Does it maintain your headcount? I mean, we're all worried about AI.
I mean, again, we're going. It's funny. We're going back to the whole budget philosophy, right? So I'm a big pharma. I got a big budget, but in every enterprise, headcount's a. Well, it's a game, right?
Course, right? Yeah.
Hey, you've got as much headcount as you want. I'm going to hire 50 people, and then next year you're like, all right,
can you find the people?
Once you find them,
can you find them?
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, that's so you get 20 of them in, 20 good ones finally, and then they tell you to bin it all, and they're going to outsource it, right? So it's this.
Yeah. Interesting point, because we and Joel's a permanent employee right now. Danny and I are kind of professional freelancers, that sort of stuff.
Both,
or both, of course, over time.
All of us, I think, do both.
Yeah, I think we kind of go back and forth. Right. So then you have this so-called 500,000 jobs, cybersecurity jobs, available at any one time. So
you can't automate. So.
But where I was going was, you've got people this vacuum or suction into jobs that are clearly needed, but then there's a level of automation, there's a level of outsourcing. I mean, one thing we see in our roles is it can be hard to get a job.
You can't get them because if you're not experienced in Excel, but you're good at Office, you've been.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Thanks, ATI tracking system. You're rubbish.
Yeah, the ATS is a crap. I lost a job because I wasn't good on Excel.
But hold on to that. That point is so beautiful. Again, all of this technology, all of this AI, as good as everybody thinks it is, and as much as everybody believes that we're about to turn into the age of Terminator, man, we are so
Skylink.
We are so far from that. I look
because of a lack of common sense.
Look, the biggest thing you have to understand about the automation is there's got to be a really smart person behind it who's telling it what to look for. So if you don't have somebody who understands, look. If somebody's logging in from a machine in Prague and tomorrow they're logging into that same machine from Uzbekistan and the time between logins was 4 hours and there's no possible way they can physically do that travel in 4 hours. Hey, flag that, right?
But then that's the user behavior side, which is brilliant.
I mean, so rather than having to have a guy who runs a script against the log dumps.
Yay! Big J did it. Ring the bell. Subscribe below.
Right?
The dumper.
Subscribe because next week it's all tits out.
Oh, that will teach you.
I know. So basically, getting back to what I was saying is, at the end of the day, you have these situations with people that automation's great. The only thing automation's doing is giving you the empowerment all day long you're grinding away to do something, and at the end of it, you're like, man, this is great. Everybody's happy. I just got a pat on the back from the manager, but this is this really didn't make us more secure. And AI, when you program it right, you can sit back and go, I basically just told 100 Indians what to go do. Right, because we offshore so much, right? Yeah. So I just told I have a team of 100 people who are now pouring through my log dumps to find this specific situation, which takes time.
So you can find it faster, but it's not necessarily making you smarter. So you have a whole bunch of stuff.
It's not only that, but automation is removing the
common sense.
No, the other way. It's removing removing the need for people who don't have common sense.
I see.
I don't need to pay for a offshore provider, or in most companies, you're going to end up outsourcing a lot of your security. You have to. It's so big, right?
It's massively repeatable, and it's massive. And
again, if I'm outsourcing my security to you, you want to make sure I don't get hacked on your watch, but at the same time, you just want to get paid.
Well, most services are SaaS anyway, aren't they? So you're outsourcing.
So the service
you've got 30 guys that you got to pay. They got Christmas coming up, and some Polish guys that are really good, and you got people all around the world that you got to take care of.
Yeah.
Right. And
Did you hear about this Christmas presents?
Yeah, no, do we get?
This stuff gets expensive. I'm Italian. What can I say?
The Fraboni's in the net.
If you're hearing a drum beat in the background, it's because Fraboni's giving large.
There is fans outside banging on the door. We're in a secret bunker, but they've got the way in.
Exactly.
Oh, the girls showed up finally.
I know there's one thing.
They're 80 years old and they're here to clean up.
Just nipping away from that AI end user behaviour. Who's logging in from where? With your, the security strategy and the products you bring in, how's that affecting an end user from, the amount of authentication that's going into play?
What's the areas
does it impact
so that kind of stuff doesn't. Really, with that stuff, again, where AI comes in really handy is it's a really powerful tool for your threat hunting teams, right? Yeah. It allows you to go back and look backwards, right? So again, you're not
something has happened. So reactive versus what?
Well, and again,
some of it's near real time.
You're doing that but you're also doing it so you can learn, right? Yeah, look, cybersecurity is nothing. At the end of the day, cybersecurity is nothing more than a glorified game of castle defense.
Yeah, sure.
Right. And you always lose. You might get to a level 1,000 before they overrun you, but at the end of the day, the governments have too sophisticated tools that they just empower you.
You can be overwhelmed by the dashboards that go on, blue, green, black, whatever it might be. Yeah, exactly. You've got a problem, but you've got a powerful.
It's funny that you say that, but that's not how real world is. There's no dashboard that wing, red alert.
But you look at
we don't have those.
Every tool on the land's that they present in their marketing presents these dashboards.
Oh yeah, to the CISO who's sitting there in his office.
That's for a slide pack.
Who barely understands half the shit he's working on. Who's like, how much are my stocks worth today? Oh shit, we got an outage going on. Right. You got to understand, a CISO's an executive.
Harsh.
He meant to say dump.
All right. That might have been a little bit rough. And to be fair, most CISOs are pretty dialed in, right? So
you like to think
no,
they are.
But again, at a CISO level, right? What do I care about? Are we being actively hacked?
Oh no! Yeah.
Do I have to notify my executive bosses
or the authorities?
I'm an executive, but do I need to go to the? And the CISO I was reporting to for a while, he had to go to the board.
Yeah.
Hey board, we just got hacked. We just had the company we just bought. They've offered our data back to us on the black web.
Nice.
And we've got to deal with them.
Wow.
And you know what? And those things happen regularly. This is why you have cyber insurance.
Yeah.
Right.
And even that's. I'm aware of it's becoming. That's an entirely another conversation. They were saying for another episode. But to be insured is one thing.
And trust me, everything. At the end of the day, everything boils down to money, right? So, will we pay them the ransom?
Well, there's reputation involved.
Will we pay them the ransom?
Uh-huh.
We just bought a company for their technology, for their data. And now this guy's he's blackmailing us to offer it.
I was saying that you pay to get hacked, and then
he wants $1 million, and he'll give us our data back, and he'll go away. And we reverse hack him and find out he's legit. He's legit.
Well, that's.
And when I say legit, he's a legit ransom artist, right? This is his job.
Okay. So he's not legit.
So all right. So you know what? Pay the man his $1 million. Mm-hmm. Because the amount of money we'll spend in legal fees and hacking him and fighting him,
business, getting it back.
And you know what? We will waste more than $1 million in people's time.
Yeah.
Just even making an answer on what to do.
Yeah.
So just
plus the operational downtime,
pay him $1 million to move forward.
Risk, all that.
But again, that's when you work with a company with an unlimited budget. When you go to a company that's got a limited budget, they're much smaller. Obviously,
fighting it a little bit. It's expensive in effort terms, but less in cash terms.
But you also have to correlate that to, if I'm a smaller company with less of an attack vector, that's because I'm less interesting to the attackers.
Yeah,
right?
But that doesn't change your strategy or decision on the kind of products you're going to use to protect the company.
Yeah. It does because
if that exposing your security, if you can't afford it.
If I have the kind of money where I can get I can't afford a Qualys, for example. Qualys is a great service, but if I can't afford it,
vulnerability management.
So
principally amongst all.
So maybe I'll flip over and I'll use a competitor of theirs that's a lower quality, but they're also giving me an EDI tool for the endpoint. Yeah,
sure.
Right, so I can bundle multiple tool sets together, so it gives me coverage of multiple layers. Mm-hmm. With one hit financially, right?
Oh,
and again, if I'm a big enterprise, I've got that. Plus, I've got a bunch of little like
I mean, you could go
startup things that are running in parallel with it, so that I'm checking, because I know this is going to miss, right? I know the success rate on this is 50 to 70%. So I'm adding other tools on top of that to catch the other 30. We've got some really good people out there, right? We got, there's good technology people, there's good security people, there's a bunch of geeks out there who just love security and they love figuring it out. And they've come up in I came up in AD, right? Messaging in AD. I don't know. I think you were a messaging guy when I met you.
Do you remember Lotus Notes?
Yeah. Domino. I was taught Active Directory principles by these guys, and that's where I got the
spent
dump
my life
from.
migrating the world, and that's when we took our original dump.
Some of us know
Active Directory in your
Novell
sleep.
right?
I did know Novell.
Right,
Wow,
right.
Novell. Everything in a work
Matter of
group.
fact, I remember hiring you because your scripts were so good. Your Outlook's great. Your scripts and Exchange. Your Exchange, Lotus Notes.
My Lotus Notes. When there was no tool. Talking to tools.
Hold on. Remember
we had script manual.
Remember the migration acetant?
No, I do not.
Oh,
how old are you?
Remember that tool? The tool
Sounds like
that I
something you
wrote.
paint on a fence.
No,
acetate.
It was a tool that I wrote, but I'm so shit at spelling that I wrote that I titled it as acetate instead of assistant.
Did you notice Aztec?
It wasn't shit at programming. It was shit at spelling.
It was
Hence
it was the
acetate.
migration acetant because it should have been assistant, but
Like it becomes clear.
fucked it all.
Like I say, ring the bell and subscribe.
This will only get funnier, folks.
Acetate, and then you're having a dump.
No, and in those days, I mean, talking to cybersecurity, nobody ever wrote viruses for Lotus Notes because it was mainly mainly pharma and banking.
You know what's funny? At that company that we all worked at, that we won't name, drop it high to lose it. At one point, I was in charge of making sure all the endpoints had properly secure patching. Right. This is back when Microsoft. You had roll-ups, and you had counter patches, and you had superseding patches, and you had it was just a freaking mess.
This was when it wasn't just one patch Tuesday; it was patch any day.
It was patch every day. And we're talking XP days, right? Like SP2, XP, SP2. And,
wow.
And I was getting beat up by the people in Germany because, like, how do we have these countries who this is missing and this KB is missing and and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, hold on, and I wrote a virus basically, and I released it on the company.
A useful virus.
And it was the coolest thing because you want to see how fast something can spread in enterprise, man.
Oh yeah!
Within 2 days, I had 180,000 machines covered with my little virus. But man, it gave me all the information I needed on every single.
That's why I was locked in Bond Towers on the 15th
floor. So we've been hacked.
When I left,
do you know this man?
Guys, they didn't have security back then. It was fine.
No.
Nowadays, they'd find it out because you know why?
Yeah.
Because their architects actually worked with us and left working with us to go back there to fix it.
We deployed the whole infrastructure.
And back in the days when we were migrating, I'm just thinking of this now. Back in the days when we were migrating to Outlook, of course, you had to Exchange, you had to deploy Outlook.
Yep.
And we used a logon script and a batch file.
I flew to Milan with a CD.
Yeah,
I thought I was going to play Metallica in the car.
CD.
And it was the image.
And people with a coaster on their desk, it's a CD, are the ones that are well versed in all things tech and IT, right? We used a batch script to kick off the deployment. You couldn't do that now. The lights would.
Oh my god! You would have your security guy calling you, being like,
"Oh yeah, they'd be unplugging you virtually, physically, and kicking you across the
remember
car.
GPWS? We used to torrent parts of the image to get it across the network to compile it to re-flash a machine. Imagine torrenting company.
We now call that lateral movement in virus terms, or
jail.
Or jail time in some cases.
Well, not necessarily. I mean,
but you know, and even
the old days were fun days, weren't they, boys?
There was a product called 1E that used to, if you wanted your updates,
they still rock.
They still run.
300,000
1E.
Yeah.
1E. We used it because you would instead of pulling your internet updates off the internet, pull them off the next peer and then on the network. So that made things quite efficient, particularly.
I say it's a good idea. You're breaking down the size of the data that you.
So peer to peer.
But again, like getting the conversation we're on, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to the people. We're talking about automation and how automation, and we're kind of side skipping into viruses and writing stuff. But at the end of the day, right? It comes back to so is automation going to replace people? No. It just means that I've got a better tool set to work with. And I don't need to rely on so many non-security people to help me. Because hey man, I need to get logged. Your favorite. I need log dumps.
Did you get your new joke?
I need a log dump. I need it.
Don't know what accent that is, but carry on.
So do I need to pay a guy the high security rates because he just goes around collecting logs? right? I mean, that's like a basic IT function.
No, of course.
I mean, most cybersecurity incidents are caused by end user misuse.
No, it's caused by logs, log data.
Is it really?
Log data, man. Man, everything's log data.
Well,
We collect logs from everywhere, right?
Yeah.
We're collecting logs from the endpoints, from the servers, from
This
networks.
is the text-based logs. We don't collect any other logs.
I mean,
clear.
Real time in cybersecurity is like 10 minutes after it already happened.
Yeah.
Right? And 10 minutes means you got a robust setup.
We all aimed and
I mean, there are some network penetrations that you can see in real time.
Who will? Well, I mean,
again,
you can react or you can proact.
This
And
goes back-
proaction is stopping stuff happening. That doesn't happen a lot.
This goes. Yeah.
Well, if there's a red flag, it's happened.
Yeah,
It's
so,
happening.
because it needs to
that's
happen.
But you got to
Yeah.
understand, in cybersecurity, it's almost always like red flag. It's already
Yeah,
happened.
it's already happening. Yeah.
I mean,
It's in the log. It's happening. usually.
again, I go back to we're playing castle defense, right? And we're gonna lose. We're always gonna lose. The trick is learning. When you play that game, you play it, you lose, and then immediately the next time you start playing it, you go 10 levels more, right?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
do you go 10 levels more? Well, because you figured out what they did to
you know
get by you, right?
you've learned, right?
This is
That's a good analogy,
cybersecurity. I mean, really the root of it, but it gets back to the people. I mean, automation is a tool set that allows you to eliminate the non-security minded teams that you need to do your grunt work.
Yeah, which
it
is
basically gives you a set of hands.
Which is back to Danny's question. For the average user, they have no clue what goes on in the background, and there are a well configured cybersecurity machine. It will never not be intrusive because security by definition is
basically
intrusive.
authenticates.
Yeah.
That's all they need to know about the fact that they're secure.
And there may be some user actions that prompt the odd red flag, but arguably the system learns, right? And there's some valid scenarios.
Trying to book a limo from the CEO.
Actually, you'd be surprised. That's so.
Why is that one of my?
It's funny you brought that up
crown
because
jewel somewhere.
I know. The biggest crown jewel we had at this big pharmaceutical we had was the
exec logistics or something.
No, it was the airplane booking with a company owned four airplanes, full size airplanes,
Back to the limited budget.
and 2 private jets. Okay. So you had 4 737s and 2 private jets, and there was a booking system for it for the executives, and that thing was so locked down, and that was
crown jewel.
Man, it to the point where we had an executive who was tech clever.
Yeah.
And he, I don't know, forgot his phone, left it with his girlfriend or whatever. There was something hinky there, but didn't have his phone.
Love a bit of scandal.
Didn't have his phone. Certainly didn't want anybody to find out why he lost it. And borrowed the phone from his driver to change the booking of his flight by 40 minutes.
Right.
Should be no big deal. But we don't understand that IMEI address from that phone. That's not anything associated to him. So who the hell is it? And man,
all the lights went off.
That poor guy.
SWAT teams a lot.
He pulled up the airport, and they pulled him out of the car, put him on the ground, and started arresting him. And when the
we're talking CEOs of the biggest firms.
No, this is a board member. The board member is like flipping out, and he takes his phone and he's calling us, going, "Why is this guy he's saying something to do?" And we're like, we don't recognize his phone. Who are you?
You set off all the alarms.
You sound like the guy we know, but how do we know you are who you are?
So,
where is your phone? Where is your devices? What are you doing? Go to your device. Needless to say, the guy didn't make his flight.
I was going to say
there's security on a level that you don't even think of.
I didn't get a bonus that Christmas, so it's.
So the alarm went off on your watch, wasn't your fault. So you can. I mean, more often the end users are a lot to do with. A lot to defend from. We can do so many things, but there are certain scenarios.
Your end users.
Well, the job is to protect the end user and the client.
In today's day and age, where your end users get the most impact is because we're in such a sharing world.
Of course.
Oh, let me share my photos. Oh, let me share this. And our devices. I mean, I was sitting with you guys before the podcast, and you put your iPads together, and all of a sudden they were like one iPad. Right? So
we do research.
Yeah, that was.
So how do I protect that? So I've got a CEO, and he's got confidential information about a company we're about to buy because they have some biotech that we really need.
Yeah.
And how do I make sure Danny doesn't walk up with his iPad, set it next to yours accidentally, and suck the data out?
Drop it over, whatever.
Right. So I'm going to put tools that are going to block that functionality. Yeah. So where do end users and security meet? At a level of functionality that everybody can accept.
Yes, and that was one of the questions.
And that is an ever-moving...
Ever-moving feast. There is a really fine line between usability and
ever-moving
security.
goalpost.
Now, we are conscious of time, gentlemen. We can.
Are we conscious of bathroom breaks?
So let's wrap this up. So clearly, there's a lot to talk about. We originally started with 5 or 10 questions. We ended up with 3 or 4. I love the stories, Joel.
But I think the best we got out was as Big J mentioned, Joel Fraboni. Well, there's 7 layers that you have to respect in cybersecurity, regardless, which we'll add to the podcast later.
We can talk, actually, that would be a great podcast to talk about that. And I still think one of the
I'd like to know myself as well.
I think one of the conversations that I wanted to have today, and we didn't get a chance to, but it'll be a great topic for a later one, is how do you get your teams to work together? Because again, you've got a lot of data, you got AI, you got people. How do you put it all together to
make it meaningful, keep everyone
into
keep
a
the
proper
peace,
cybersecurity
collaboration and communication,
right?
Yeah,
because you'll have people who own the apps you've got to talk to, people on the security, people on the networks.
And I mean, we're talking about security people; they love to share information.
I mean, we had a
Joel's face says it all.
We had a call today, and there's an org chart. So I'm looking at the org chart, and it's very high level. And all the boxes are empty. And the first thing for me is, that's your communication and collaboration. And
stakeholders.
And that's the first thing I'm like, once the boxes are filled, then you can start doing it. But that's one of the hardest parts is getting the right people, getting them to the table, and then talking through the products and what we need. And luckily, I'm working with Joel on a project now for a big pharma. So before you go into FDA regulations and all the documentation, it's getting the right people to the table, and that's another key point.
I think there's a theme, wrapping this up. There's a theme. People always feature heavily. Tech's one thing, but getting the people in the place to operate the tech and talk to each other is really kind of key.
Love to get Joel back anyway. If you
I'd love to come back with you guys. This is a great podcast.
We'll no doubt have Joel back for a season 2 and 3. But wrapping this up for this week. So for myself, Kenny, we'll see you next time, Danny.
And for me, Danny, take a dump.
See you soon.
Check your logs.
Make sure you get a good log dump tonight.
And don't swap your iPads with Kenny. I've seen the stuff he logs at. Anyway, click subscribe, follow the links. We hope you enjoy the matter.
Ring that notification bell, baby. Come on, do it for me.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks very much, everybody. It's good night from me. Good night from them.